my opinion. As you know, on earlier shows, I did say that one of the things that he needed to get was the Dragon Field, because Dragon Field has immense supplies of natural gas. And Shell was intending to build this pipeline to take the natural gas from that field to, I think there would be a hub in which it would be with the pipeline built by Shell that would now take that natural gas down to the police's industrial estate, where one can say that there is diversification in the energy sector if you go further down. Right. The further down you go down the value chain, is the further you get diversification, but it's obviously in the energy sector. So things like polypropylene and polyethylene that had been spoken about years ago, which is the plastics and going down the value chain, absolutely is positive news. And what I do want to say, I have to say this because I was really very elated in a way, because on one of the shows here, I did say that the reason why the Prime Minister, in my view, was not prepared to call Venezuelans refugees, although there's a lot of immense international pressure for him to do that, was because he knew if he did that, it would be then admitting that Maduro was not the a person that should have been the president of Maduro, illegitimate president Maduro, of Venezuela, but more so that the persons here were running away from political and economic persecution. And that would be a stain on his relationship with Maduro. And he and Maduro have had a good relationship. So on one end, that's one of the reasons I think there's a cost benefited, which is another discussion. But that's one of the reasons why the number of Venezuelans were allowed to come here, or that they're not English speaking, or they're not members of CARICOM. They're not even on there. There's a huge continent on which they could go to, and yet they came here in droves, and we allowed it. We turned a blind. There's the reason they did that. And finally, on the other side of the equation, which I didn't mention, is that Biden made a slip and actually referred to President Maduro as President Maduro, which created a big kerfuffle, as Trump would say, and he pulled it back. But that was how he was thinking, a Freudian slip. But it wasn't only that. He started to ease up the sanctions against Venezuela, which I had spoken on about already, to allow Italian, ETA or whatever is the name of a big oil company, and Repsol in Spain to import the crude oil from Venezuela. He also removed a huge amount of the humanitarian sanctions or other sanctions against Venezuela. And so you could see where they were going with this story. And it wasn't because they love Venezuela. It's not about love of Venezuela. They're under pressure in Europe and the United States with inflation, and a major driver for inflation, which you could say is something that they need to really deal with, because it's eating away at your purchasing power, is the price of energy, heating, all that. They've done a lot of things, number of things, but the fact of the matter is Europe, and especially Europe and America, are feeling the brunt of inflation, which is not good politically, which is causing a lot of unrest in Europe. So bottom line to what I am saying here is this, that I had said that I thought that the Prime Minister was playing the long game and did not stayed on the side of Maduro, because he believed that at the end of the day, it was going to be the interest of Trinidad and Tobago that we got the Dragon Field. And once we get that Dragon Field and Shell is allowed to build, which is what Trump stopped. Remember, he said no international company that does business with PDVSA, they will be blacklisted. So Shell could not build the pipeline. Now they can build the pipeline. That gas is, in my view, is going down to the police's industrial estate. There's a great global demand for fertilizers because of food shortages. There are so many opportunities open up there. I mean, the naphtha, they call it, the liquid gas, you take out the carbon emission. I mean, it's endless, the opportunities. So I'm going to give him a big kudos for how he played that game. He played the long game. He played it smart, and in spite of all the criticism, he understood where he's going. And as much as I have criticized the Prime Minister on many things, I would give him 100, as from what I can see now. And then in the LNG, you realize that Trinidad is ahead of the game in many countries Natural gas prices have collapsed to $3, but LNG prices have not. And guess what we have? We have an LNG platform. You have to build out the platform. You have to build out the ships.
I think, you know, what you just mentioned there.
Give him credit.
Whether or not one was of the opinion that he played the wrong game, I'm not entirely sure.
Long, not the wrong.
Sorry,
long,
my apologies. Long. All right, he played the long game, and I can even say wrong because there were those who suggested that Raul is playing the wrong game here. He should not associate himself with the regime in Venezuela. And if I'm being honest with you, I'm standing on this platform and I'm saying I was actually one of those at one point in time who expressed serious concern over our relationship with Venezuela, given the regime in Washington and their particular stance. But I will agree with you that we can say kudos to the Prime Minister over this, as well as his entire team. It is good news. Interestingly, though, I'm a bit curious because the agreement is still yet to be fully made. There's still a way to go. But with 4.2 trillion cubic feet of reserves in the Dragon Field, and the opportunity for Shell to now build that pipeline from the Dragon Field to Point Lisas, well, that signifies a lot. Now, a couple of things there.
Shell has said, Keaton, all of a sudden Shell is saying we're here for the long term. Listen,
exactly.
You think America, you think America is blameless? Do you think America doesn't look after its interests, whether it is up to now blacklisting Cuba? Right, so we look after our interests. But this is our country, and if he did that to benefit Trinidad and Tobago as a tiny little country, he did the right thing. At the end of the day, no, my problem is how many Venezuelans you're letting here, and what is the cost benefit of all of them being here? But in the long term, he could not do what he's doing until America said, you could go ahead and build that pipeline.
I think a lot of the reason for the United States of America, you just said it, America looks after its interest. With respect to the Russian-Ukraine war and the entire stance with respect to OPEC and natural gas throughout the world, this is a huge opportunity. You know, Kamala Harris spoke very much, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke very much about energy security for the Caribbean, because part of the gas that is pumped from the Dragon Field has to go to Jamaica and the Dominican Republic as part of this entire deal. But she said energy security for the region. To a great extent, this is energy security for the United States of America and Europe as well. So of course they're looking after their interests. A huge factor in this entire interplay.
Are we.
Yes.
And so are we. And we have every right to that. I don't think, you know, I have been a great critic of the Prime Minister. You know that. I have never held back on it. But from the very get-go, when all that criticism was made out him, I guess because I was in government and I sort of understand that he has information that you and I do not have, and things are going on behind the scenes that we don't have, his geopolitics, his Minister of Foreign Affairs, a number of things that he knows that we don't know. I think he played the long game, and it worked out for Trinidad and Tobago, and kudos for him. Kudos to him. And, you know, I wouldn't just say that.
Well,
you know, I wouldn't just.
There is a lot that I would like to say about this, but we have to take a break. So I will just say for now, before the break, that yes, I remember Karen speaking about this issue way back 2 years ago, before Talking Point was even Talking Point. And she is correct. I think that, let's just say this, the diplomatic work that we have seen throughout the last maybe 3 years, the balancing act, because to some extent, I myself don't necessarily understand why the United States seemingly places so much importance on us. We're not the only people with oil and gas that they could ally with, right? And even before, we have to understand, the importance of the situation was even before the war in Ukraine. The consideration we got from the United States when it seemed as though China was courting us with their vaccine. What happened? The United States swooped in with their vaccine. So, and the fact that TNT is able, usually, when you don't pick a side, you end up being treated indifferently by everybody, right? Because you're not, you can't commit, so no significant other really wants to keep with you. They can't trust you. But somehow we have managed to not ruffle the feathers, to keep the balancing act. and now this deal is moving. And yes, the situation in Ukraine has, of course, maybe accelerated it. But I do believe that this would have happened even without the economic fallout and energy fallout from Ukraine. So Karen, I'll speak more about that, but let's take the break now. And then when we come back, I'll explain more about what I meant when we return.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola.
Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. Only on your content capital, WESN.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and we are here now this morning somewhat celebrating. I will say this is, I think, by all three of our opinions, what we saw yesterday with the sanctions being waived for TNT to be allowed to operate, to exploit our shared resources with Venezuela without any concerns for sanctions or any sort of political fallout is good news. As much as we call for diversification on the show, the need for us now to utilize our natural resources in these difficult economic times, well, we cannot just ignore the potential windfall that we have here. Of course, there's a separate conversation we will have later on with regards to what, how, and where it will be exploited, and then what the money will be used for, and as a whole other thing. But right now, we could at least appreciate the good job done by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and by the Prime Minister himself, who we know he took the flights, he went out there to the energy conferences internationally around the world. So this is one area. Kudos to him, kudos to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, kudos then to the Minister of Energy. It is somewhat encouraging that we could see actually long-term planning work out in this country. Now, I just want to say a couple things quick. First of all, I think this was probably an eventuality because as we see, sanctions don't force a regime change. It never has. What's happening in Russia is that it's restricting their economy and their war economy, And I think those situations are two very different situations. But it's not going to force Maduro out. And really and truly, usually it's the people who do suffer from sanctions when trying to use them in that way. Not only do we have the fact that the world needs Venezuelan energy, but I myself do wonder how did Venezuela get through the pandemic. So there's a lot of reasons, some of them very self-centered for each individual stakeholder, some of them altruistic, to move ahead and to start lifting sanctions from Venezuela. And I think also, at least to me now, with the benefit of hindsight, restricting trade with Venezuela with regards to the energy industry seems somewhat hypocritical after what was going on with the energy deals between Europe and Russia. Not only did they make energy deals with potentially the one military threat that they had to look out for, but while they were sending aid to Ukraine, or at least while the UK, the US, and other countries were sending military aid to Ukraine, they were still purchasing natural gas through, not the second pipeline, I can't remember the name, but the first one. They were still purchasing natural gas from Russia, essentially, technically contributing to a war that most European countries, I believe, denounce. So it's kind of hypocritical to, you allow that to happen. You didn't give any fuss, but, we're going to clamp down on poor little Venezuela, which at this point we could argue is poor and little in the economic sense and needs a rebound just as much as anybody in the region. So
I wouldn't say that I am celebrating this morning. I would say that I am rather excited, and I'm a bit more curious to know what is to come. I know there's a difference between celebrating and being excited. This is good news overall, but I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm celebrating. There are a bit more details. I'm not saying that I'm not going to be optimistic. I'm just saying that there's a lot more I wish to find out first.
Keaton, stop poo-pooing on my parade, on Karen's parade.
Well, I'm not pooping on Karen's parade because I'm not pooping on your crane. And why am I using that word? Forgive me for using that word. I don't encourage use of that word on this program. But I think what we should also understand is the relationship now between PDVSA, Shell, and Trinidad and Tobago. Because according to one source who chose to remain anonymous, a member of the U.S. State Department speaking to the Reuters news agency, apparently, and this is yet to be confirmed because we don't know all the details as yet, the license, the Trinidad government applied for a 10-year license. They've been granted a 2-year license with the option of renewal still on the table. But again, all the details of that has to be sorted out. The tricky part is, according to this source, there would be no cash flow between the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the government of Venezuela. So no cash transaction can take place. And that is the reason why I say I'm not celebrating as yet, because the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago still have to actually organize a deal. They have to negotiate a deal with Venezuela. Now, it's not going to be entirely difficult given the relationship between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago at this point. But because there's not going to be any cash transaction that's allowed, again, that is yet to be confirmed. This is from an anonymous source in the U.S. State Department. Because of that, I'm waiting to see exactly what this entire deal would be and what is Cracker's position on this.
I would have...
Okay, can I just come in right here, because my view is a little different from either of your views, because it is very much shaped by being in government, being a minister, and being in looking at things from not only a political but from a government point of view. And so I don't know how it's going to roll out at the end, but I am going to say there is no doubt in my mind that when the Prime Minister said that we had big game changers, one was Sandals, which fell through for Tobago, but the other one was the Dragon Field, which was not intended, the natural gas was to go down the Point Lisas industrial estate to produce, go down the value-added chain to help with the fertilizers, which is the biggest with food, food insecurity all over the world. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind, because I could think that Mr. Manning would have done the same thing, that they play the long game and he understood he needed that dragon field. And in order to get that dragon field, well, let me just finish. No, because I think to come and talk about we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know. Let's just understand. Let us just give, because when we beat them up for crime, which they deserve to be beaten up for crime, let us just give the government the credit that they played the game well, and it has resulted in exactly what the Prime Minister wanted, which is for Shell to be able to build that pipeline and the gas to come from the dragon field so that he can go down the value chain.
I understand.
That is a great, and I don't think on the first day of that being stated that one should not recognize in no uncertain terms that the Prime Minister played the game well, did it well for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm not going to be, and I just don't want the negativity.
I'm going to repeat
what's the negativity about?
I'm going to repeat
I think the Prime Minister is going to play this part,
and I will simply say that it's not me being negative. I'm repeating myself by saying I understand what you are suggesting, and I can say Sean and I don't agree with you. I'm sorry, my apologies. Sean and I do not disagree with you. Okay. We give the Prime... Yes, forgive me. I got a little mixed up there. Sean and I do not disagree with you. I am giving the Prime Minister credit. I'm giving his entire team and all those who work behind the scenes credit for this. I will not take that away, and I will not let any questions overshadow the excitement. I am simply suggesting that if I have to be fair and if I have to be neutral, I am very much excited, but I still have some questions, which at this point in time, I will be patient enough to see the answers of that.
Let me weigh in on that, because that was the last thing I wanted to weigh in on before you bumped me off. Anyway, I think what Karen said with regards to nations seeking their interests is key here. And I think it goes beyond that. We've now reached a point in time where the United Nations has been functioning for, 70, 80 years. We've recovered after 2 world wars. We've seen international diplomacy, Karen. There's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of conflicts, a lot of there was the Cold War where it was all non-conflict. It was all espionage and diplomacy and fights for influence. We've seen it all. And governments understand that other governments also seek their own interests. And they're not going to dig a horrors, oh gosh, this country sought their own interests, we can't have that. No. So I think that is the key, because I am of the opinion, and I thought this at the time when it happened, when TNT had that meeting that the opposition, told on the government to bigger brother, the US. When we had that meeting, I would not have been surprised if it was kept subtle, and if nothing too major happened yet, that the US would have been happy to just leave it be subtle. I mean, obviously, if TNT went and shook Maduro's hand and say, we just gonna pump oil out, tomorrow, then the US would have been like, whoa, what's going on? But I actually would be surprised if the US was going to come down on TNT for having talks and putting out feelers and trying to find a way forward. I think because, again, the US wants its allies to improve their position, right? Once it doesn't cause the whole thing to collapse, and therein lies the situation with how the deal is weighted. When you say that there's only 2 years and cash transactions are barred, with something like this, I think you have to give political concessions to those who would oppose something like this, who would want to just sink it and not give it a chance. The thing with not having any cash transactions, Karen, as you just said, you don't want to have financial dealings with Venezuela. You want the authorization to get the gas and oil out of the ground, right?
And you don't want the cash transaction, because the cash transaction can be money laundering and all that goes with it. Listen, I just want to say, I agree with Keaton. We don't know where it's going to go. We don't know what's going to happen. But gosh, give the Prime Minister credit, and I'm going to give him the credit. And nobody could say I'm on his side, because I've been very critical of him. So if I am saying that, I'm saying it as having been in government, having been in cabinet. Understand, as someone of my former PSs told me, I'm not getting into politics with cabinet minister because they have unique knowledge. The prime minister had unique knowledge. Give him his credit. What happens going forward, I cannot see. How he played that game, I give him the credit. And I'm not going to take away that from him.
At the end of the day, Sean, Karen, and I have given the Prime Minister his due credit, and we will not take that away from him. I think the understanding is that we just have differing, not entirely different, but there are differing circumstances to our approach to analyzing this entire development.
I think the real question is not with regards, at least right now, because again, there's a lot of questions on the initiative. I think the real question, because we've seen this in other things, including locally, what happens with if the wild card in this situation kind of does something unexpected to upset the whole apple cart, and the wild card is Maduro. Next thing you know, he kind of gets a little full of himself, oh, they're lifting sanctions, and he starts to say all the wrong things, and starts to do all the wrong things, and makes it very obvious that if we start to let him off the hook, now we will look like the hypocrites and the US will look like the hypocrites, and all of a sudden we have real hard decisions to make. That is the first thing I am worried about, because I have not heard that much coming out of Venezuela except out of my sister-in-law and her family relations. That's anecdotal, so it can't speak to the whole nation. So I don't know what the situation is truly like on the ground right now out of the pandemic. You don't hear as much. It doesn't make the news cycle as much. So I don't know how Maduro will act on this. I hope he remains stable.
One area that I absolutely will not support a prime minister. Maybe I think we said it, I don't know if we're going to talk about it at all. But his selection of Christine Gangaloo as the and the reason I bring it up is because of the recent election and the whole thing with Israel Khan and 3 votes that was spoiled, and whether in fact an issue that I had not thought about before myself, and which was raised to me, and it is in the Constitution, why this selection was really a very, very bad selection. Fit for purpose, not at all.
Just before we go into that, we do have to take a break, very quick break, but I just want to say that I look forward, actually. I'm quite interested. Kevin Ramrain has already responded to this news. He's actually extended his congratulations to Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. He himself says this is very good news for TNT. I am particularly keen, I must raise it, to see the response on the part of the opposition, who they've taken a strong stance against the Prime Minister and his relationship. But I think a journalist asked the Prime Minister yesterday at the press conference during the question segment, Prime Minister, what would you say now? How would you respond to the opposition who opposed your stance? And he says, well, listen, if I ever listened to the opposition, then I'll probably be where they are right now today. And I give him credit for that response. I thought it was a damn good response.
That is a good response, and I cannot fault him for that response, because there is truth in that. If he, it is not, yes, we always say that the opposition does make some points, but one could argue a broken clock is right twice a day, and I can't fault him at all.
No, I thought it was a brilliant response.
No,
I laugh.
This is not, and the reason why it's brilliant.
This is another station we on. Are we on another station that sings the praises of the government all the time? I feel like we on that.
Karen, the reason why it's brilliant is not because it was witty. The reason why it's brilliant is because it's true.
No, it's
witty. Practical truth.
No, well, I don't know about that.
I would say so.
It was very witty.
It was a very good response. It was. But I would say
it's a good response.
There is a kernel to truth with that, because the opposition does not do its job well enough. So why? And you see, therein lies the problem that I have at least with the opposition. The Prime Minister doesn't have to listen to you, because most of what you say is not really significant.
Well, listen, I wasn't going to go. Go into all of that. But following the Prime Minister waving to opposition protesters following the election of Christine Gangaloo, waving and smiling to them, and this response yesterday put forward, I'll probably be in their position today if I listen to them. Well done, Prime Minister, in terms of that response. I actually give you credit for how you respond to something.
Long view, Karen, long view, right, and witty. You know, this is a good week for the Prime Minister.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a quick break here on the program. Let's not forget the other things happening across Trinidad and Tobago. We don't have to dive into all of it now, but let's a lot more to discuss right after this.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Talking Point. And of course, we did speak about this issue quite a bit, but the Electoral College vote happened this week. And unfortunately, Karen has not been with us since last week. So now, yes, we have our opinion on the nominee who was eventually elected and confirmed in the post. However, there was a couple other things that happened. Keaton and I weighed in on it. But with regards to what happened from the opposition's view of things, Karen, I think you have something to add to that discussion for us.
Yes, I just wanted to make one or 2 points. You know, no one can question Christine Kangalou's intellectual ability, all the good things that the Prime Minister said about her, and no one is questioning that. But the issue is when you're dealing with the appointment of the head of state, and the president, you have to look for fit for purpose. Is she fit for purpose? That's the test to be applied. And fit for purpose means, in my view, are you going to take someone, not a political appointee per se, because I think at the end of the day, people will always say whoever is the party in power, whoever they appoint or select will be a political appointment in the broad sense. You could say that about Anthony Carmona, you could say that about Paula May Weeks, but neither of them were in the party. Neither of them were, maybe they supported them quietly, but certainly they were not up and front and indirect in your face with it. When you put Christine Kangaloo, and that's why I think the selection, whether it was intended or not, of Israel Khan by the opposition really underscores why this thing was not right. Because Israel Khan, as up to July of last year, had said that he defended the appointment of the Attorney General Reggie Amo after that confusion in Miami, and then went back at the Kamala about saying how, yes, all these senior counsels have to eat, they eat at the trough, so they have to say what they have to say. Well, maybe she has a good point. But what he did say is, I am not a I don't have a UNC party member, but I support the PNM, I'm UNC, and I will vote for the PNM. So UNC. So what you had is not someone who you believe had particular points of view, saying that. You have someone who is telling you, I'm a party man. And then you take, on the other side, you take Christine Kangaloo, who did not have even an opportunity away from the political Gaia, and has spent the last 20 years actively involved in party politics. is that fit for purpose for the country? Because every time she speaks, she's not just going to be seen as a political appointee, as Carmona or Weeks, where people say, you know, the government. She's going to have the word PNM written on her forehead every single time she speaks. It is going to be seen as and that cannot be good for the Republican Constitution. And why I wanted to bring it up really is because someone made a point, which was a very good point. I thought Section 83 says that the Prime Minister shall have weekly meetings, I don't know if it's weekly, but regular meetings with the President to update on what's going on in the country. Now, you are a party person, you're not just a Carmona or Paula Weeks. You come in straight out of the belly of the party. How are you ever going to speak on issues that are affecting the people of this country? The things that are affecting the people of this country is crime. The things that are affecting the people of this country is income inequality. The things that are affecting the people of this country is the food crisis in this country, where people with the poverty level cannot afford to eat, and the flooding. Are you going to be able, when they invite you to speak, where you go to the, are you going to have enough independence to speak for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, or are you going to toe the party line? Are you going to be bold enough or independent enough to criticize the government for the handling of the crime situation? Are you going to be bold enough to say they have not done enough to create an entrepreneurial society in this country? And that's why income inequalities are one of our biggest things. Are you going to be independent enough to speak for the body politic, which is the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and not for the PNM party? Because you're not even seen just as a political appointee. You are seen as a PNM party appointment. I mean, that is just cannot be good. So either she becomes mute, like what they accuse Paula May Weeks, becoming mute, or if she does not become mute, is she going to have the ability to be independent, to speak and criticize the government? Is she going to be able to do that? I don't know if she can do that. And if she were to do that, is she going to fall out with the party? Because that's how it will be, you know. It won't be fall out with the country, you know. It will fall out with the party. And if she does, and if she toes the party line, says something that the party, like that supports the Prime Minister, she's supporting the party. She is seen as a party appointee. That cannot be right. And my final point about that is this, for example, is she going to be willing, if the Prime Minister says to her, we want a state of emergency, she can misuse it. Governments are not unknown for abusing a state of emergency. And the Section 8.2 requires not only the proclamation of the state of emergency, but for the President to sign a written declaration that she or he is satisfied that the conditions for a state of emergency exist. Is she going to be independent enough to say, Prime Minister, you know, I don't see that the conditions are there. Are we turning into a dictatorship? Is she going to be able to do that? She's a party appointee, not even a political appointee. And my final point with regard to that is that, you know, the immunity, she can't be prosecuted. The government can't touch her. The government cannot touch her, you know. They could even try to remove her, but it's hell to get rid of her if she falls out with them. So my final point is really, it is not anything to do with Christine Kangaloo. Fit for purpose. Fit for purpose. It is Christine Kangaloo. Fit for purpose as a party, not a political party member. Come off from one day to the next day as a party person to be the head of state in our democratic republic. That cannot be right. And my final thing is just to underscore that. If Paula May Weeks was a Court of Appeal judge, had no obvious allegiance to the party, could, when the Prime Minister came and told her that he didn't want Gary Griffith, and he had a report, the section that she operates under, which she always says she's a creature of statute, can do nothing that the statute does not allow her to do. How could she immediately have that withdrawn, the list? Only because you have to conclude that the Prime Minister said, don't take that list, you know. That can't go, don't prepare that notification, you know. So if Paula May Weeks, who left office, I don't think in a positive way, people said she became mute. People criticized her for what she did there with the Gary Griffith thing. And she was not party. She was politically appointed. She's a Court of Appeal judge where justice is supposed to be blind. You can see that Christine Kangaloo, who has spent her whole life as a PNM minister, a PNM, party. you're going to see that she has the ability to be a head of state and do what a head of state is required. She is not fit for purpose, and she should not have been elected.
The irony of the situation is the position she is appointed to does allow her to be independent if she is so inclined to do so. Because, as you said, it will be difficult to remove her. And with regards to her political career, one would argue technically that is the highest office. So Gary Griffin becoming Commissioner of Police after being Minister of National Security in politics is something of an aberration. I don't know of many examples where you take the lesser role after you had the higher role. So her political career technically has reached its zenith. Traditionally, that means that after this point, you know, this is the capstone, and she would retire from Parliament.
This is a precedent. This is a precedent.
Yes.
This is a precedent. So from now on, if they want to take somebody straight out of the party, what is his name? Kamala's second-hand man, Rudal Munilal, and they went and they put Rudal Munilal as president, and everybody knows. Going to Hansard and see what Christine Kanglu had to say about the opposition. She's now going to be able to retract those words when people quote her and what she said about the opposition when she was an active politician, and now she's. How is she going to be able to navigate those two worlds?
Karen, I think
it's just not going to be possible.
I think that implication there is probably the
That's
strongest
what I'm saying.
point, because already, as you pointed out, you know, the opposition's candidate was basically the same issue, a party person, just on the other side of the coin, the other side of the aisle. So now, and I've seen this in other jurisdictions.
He wasn't even a minister.
Right, but I've seen this in other jurisdictions. So now that the cat is out of the bag, why would we expect this might be the trend moving forward, where the whole, and again, this just goes back to the role of the president.
It destroys
the role of the
president. The idea that the Republican Constitution is that the people are the supreme holders of the power, which is expressed through representatives. From now on, Kamala, if they win, put Rudal Munilal as president, and not a dog bark. Not a dog bark over that. That is what will happen to Trinidad. That is what your Prime Minister did.
Kamala will put her person, and if she wins, put her person.
No, but what I'm saying is the country.
Yes,
Could you imagine that putting Rudal Munilal, not to have anything against him, but he's obviously a politician, as is Kangaloo. I was in government with her. I heard her speak on platforms again. Platforms, she's a very good platform speaker. They will take those same words that she used against the opposition and tell her, how now you are ahead of the stage. You could remember when you said this? They'll pull up their hands out on her. What she's going to do? What is she going to do? You know what she's going to do? Either she's going to come across as a party person and toe the party line, or she's going to go against the Prime Minister, which is not, and then the PNM people will be mad with her. You know why? Because she's not just a political appointment, she's a party appointment. And if Rudal Munilal is chosen by Kamala, if she wins, not a dog bark, and you have destroyed the whole concept of our democratic, and that the Prime Minister did in one fell swoop. And Christine Kanglu, as nice as she may be, she is not fit for purpose.
It's interesting how the show went.
Yes, it's
from
folks.
Praising and giving the Prime Minister so much credit for something he did.
Yeah, but you're being fair.
Well, we are being fair. But I think,
Kita, think about it. It's a tale of two Karens.
I think, Karen, I understand where you're coming from, and I wouldn't speak on behalf of Sean in this particular instance, but I was not in favor of Christine Kanglu becoming the next president of Trinidad and Tobago, and I was not entirely in favor of Israel Khan becoming the next president either. You know, but I will say that at this point, I totally understand and know all the implications of this appointment. It was by an election, but if we had to be honest, it was an appointment. Yes, you're right. She's really reached the zenith of her political career, and when she retires as president, whether or not she gets a second term, she's going to retire very happily with a wonderful pension. The thing is at this point, I don't think there's anything else that we can do. We're discussing this, and I will only take the approach as I did on Monday, and I will simply extend all the very best to the president, and I hope.
She's going to be in trouble. She's going to have problems. Fit for purpose.
But I only hope, Karen, and put it this way, I hope that she proves us wrong. I hope that she proves us wrong, and I hope that she is a president, as I said, for the people, by the people, and not for the party.
But let's go a step further, right? Let's not just hope, let's ask her to do the role properly, because her career has more or less capped. She is technically at a higher office than the Prime Minister, right? Where else is she going to go after this? Unless she, for whatever reason, wants to try to be Prime Minister after President, I don't think that's practical for a multitude of reasons. You are in a position where you no longer have to be beholden to the party. What the political leader of any party could do to any other member, for all intents and purposes, is immaterial to you now, given the position that you're in. So we could ask her, we could beseech her, don't just fall for the, well, I am a loyal party member. Don't do that.
So she going to talk about crime. Let me hear how she will talk about crime.
The thing is,
let me hear she talk about crime without criticizing the government. Let me see how she could talk about crime. She's a party person.
We know.
Prime Minister about the crime situation.
We know.
She get mute. She'll have to be mute.
And I know
just like
that
they
what I say will probably fall on deaf ears. But I will still beseech her to operate independently. But
I hear you, Sean, and I will only, I hear you, and I could appreciate your approach. I will disagree with you to the extent that if ever you have to ask anybody in such a position, please do your job, they shouldn't be there in the first place. As I said,
exactly.
If ever you have to ask somebody in that position,
but I could say that I asked, so I did everything that I could.
Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens when they start quoting. Listen, Keaton and Sean. Let's see what happens when they start quoting her speeches that she made when she was fighting on the opposition. Let's see what happened when she was in her and start attacking the opposition. Let's see how she's going to manage the two roles as head of state, as represent all of us. Let's see how she will manage it. She's a party appointee. Let's see how she will manage it. She should not be there. He should not have put her there, and she should not have taken the position.
I hate to say this, but I understand the important implications of this, and I really do. I am just far more concerned about the economy, the Ministry of Finance, what's going on with trade industry, the private sector, and crime. But I understand that she could have influence on all of those things.
Absolutely.
But
we have to...
Excuse me, that's called, you just did there? Like you took a thing from the playbook from the Prime Minister. That's called reflection. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about a party person being put in as as head of state, and that is not right. Fit for purpose. That's the words I'm using.
Just a disclaimer, folks. It's because our head of state is supposed to be independent. Yes, we know other head of states are obviously elected party people, but that's not how our system is set up right now to have that.
We just have about a minute before WSN's news on the hour.
A tale of two Karens.
I have taken this position of being the host of Talking Point this morning while Karen and Sean goes for each other. Listen, President-elect Christine Kangaloo.
I like her personally.
Oh God, Karen, that's not how you end.
A tale of three Karens.
Anyway, no, but I know I admire the fact that you're able to separate your personal relationship with what you believe is best for Trinidad and Tobago. President-elect Christine Kangaloo, all the very best, and do Trinidad and Tobago a favor and prove all of us here on Talking Point wrong.
Wait, all of us?
Right? All of us here on Talking Point.
Yes, all of us.
Prove all of us here on Talking Point wrong. That's doing Trinidad and Tobago a favor. But like I said, and we will be very much fair to you. We will. And I hope that you're fair.
Can I just say one thing? Since I'm only on a Wednesday. Let me just say this. BTW, they all start off good. They all do. Kamona started off good. Big Ray when he give his big speech. People know that I don't, what powers that I have that I don't have and all that crap. And Paul we started off real good. So, even the Prime Minister started off real good in his thing and everything fell apart. Give it time.
Karen,
give it time.
You are certainly on fire this morning. And you know what? Let's try and out this fire a little bit and we go for news on the hour.
We gotta cool it down.
We'll be right back.
Hump day.
Here is your WE. Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Teenager is one of 2 killed in latest double murder. 3 Coast Guard officers appear in court for murder. U.S. gives TT government green light to develop and monetize the Dragon field shared with Venezuela. And internationally, freezing weather kills at least 124 Afghans. Now for the details. A 16-year-old is one of 2 persons shot dead in the country's latest double murder. Reports say the incident occurred just after 2 p.m. at Fremont Road, St. Augustine. A Newsday report states that a man only identified as Gino was gunned down. On hearing the shots, 16-year-old Danish Ramath rushed outside to check on his grandmother when the gunman aimed at him. He died at the scene. 2 others were also injured in the melee. 3 members of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard appeared virtually before the Port of Spain 5th Magistrates Court after they were charged with murder. The men, Caden Bukad, Elijah Julian, and Emerson Padasi, were arrested and charged after officers of the Homicide Bureau of Investigations conducted extensive investigations into the circumstances surrounding the disappearance and death of Teddy Sylvester. The 34-year-old man was allegedly kidnapped on January 9th at Cameron Road, Marval, and his decomposed body was discovered on 13th January at Cadet Road, Cameron Hill, Petite Valley. The U.S. Treasury Department has granted a license to Trinidad and Tobago to develop a major gas field located in Venezuelan territorial waters, marking a further easing of some sanctions on Venezuela. The license means Trinidad and Tobago can resume doing business related to the Dragon gas field with Venezuela's state-run oil company, PDVSA.
This means is that the restrictions on the Dragon gas field development is now relieved, and all relevant parties can progress the plans to result in natural gas from Venezuela eventually flowing for the first time from these proven reserves to Trinidad and Tobago, and then on to Caribbean, European, and other markets, bringing much humanitarian benefits to the Venezuelan population and greater energy security to the Caribbean region.
And internationally, at least 124 people died in freezing temperatures in Afghanistan in the past fortnight, Taliban officials say. About 70,000 livestock had also perished in what is the coldest winter in a decade, a state ministry for disaster management spokesman said. Many aid agencies suspended operations in recent weeks after the Taliban banned Afghan women from working for non-governmental organizations. A Taliban minister said despite the deaths, the edict would not be changed. With that news to the hour on WESN, I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Thank you very much to Denise Martin for WSN's News on the Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Yunus-Teixeira joins Sean and I in studio this morning. If you by chance have missed the first hour, well, oh gosh, you're very unlucky. That being said, let's open up the phone lines this morning. We give you the opportunity to contribute to the discussion, and we give you the opportunity to express your thoughts and opinions. If there's something that you'd like to comment on that Sean and I or Karen, we didn't get an opportunity to do so, well then, you're free to do so. Just please be mindful of the time and do not call in at the 11th hour. Also, please mute your televisions when you call in to make your contribution. Good morning, caller from Pitty Valley. Mute your television.
Pitty Valley, you're live.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Listen to the phone on the TV.
Good morning, Keaton, Sean, and Miss Karen Yunus-Teixeira.
Good morning.
Miss Karen, this morning I want to applaud you for being in front of this Dragon deal. For years, I've been hearing you talking about this Dragon deal, exactly how it played out with United States. And I want to applaud you for always sometimes criticizing the Prime Minister and had the courage and the kind of person you are. That's why I like you to give him his flowers this morning. That was very, very honorable of you. Keaton, so this was in pain this morning to give the Prime Minister his flowers. I don't know your heart, but you say you are happy. You even went to a statement saying to an anonymous person in the White House said something. Anonymous person is an anonymous person, Keaton. You have no weight in the White House. The White House is once the Prime Minister, and Mr. Biden says something. Don't give me about an anonymous person. You're struggling to give the Prime Minister his flowers.
Oh boy.
Anyway, so be it. I want to hear the UNC this morning COLA press conference. I really would like to hear what they have to say. There was against Mr. Rowley dealing with the Venezuelan Prime Minister, forgetting him,
Maduro.
There was against the meeting that had here when the Prime Minister held a meeting with delegates of Venezuela.
Vice
They
President
wanted
Delcy.
sanctions from the United States, and the same United States turned around now and give the okay. I will really like to hear the press conference this morning. You all have a nice day.
You too. Thank
too,
you very
caller.
much. Mr. Pitty Valley, clearly you didn't hear me this morning when I gave the Prime Minister credit, and I too gave him his flowers. But that's fine. As I said, I'm a reporter, and I analyze these things, and I will analyze it to the full extent, not just bits of it. Caller on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Yunus-Teixeira, and to you fine gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
I too like the Pitty Valley. I also, Mrs. Teixeira, was on fire this morning, but when she was on fire, she was on point.
She was.
And everything I heard her say, I agree 100% with her. The Prime Minister and the team deserve the credit they have coming to them, but we wait to see the details. When the details come out, then we can make a better judgment. But I congratulate them for their persistency and that outcome. The next factor, I think a great factor in that getting the deal was that how close we are to Venezuela as well. And that I think one of the points is that they have to serve the Caribbean when they start to monetize that gas and whatnot. So I think that's a big plus. But anyway, I look at it, is a great opportunity for the country to help itself and to help its people. Gentlemen and ladies, you enjoy balance of the day and have a good week. Thank you, and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you very much, caller. Excellent points raised. We share that with you. Good morning, caller from Marval.
Hi, good morning, fellas. Good morning, Madam Teixeira.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. I must say, I don't call in often again, this is one of the best shows I have seen and heard from the three of you. The Three Musketeers or the Three Blind Mice, I don't know. But fantastic.
I mean, we're matching outfits.
What I want to ask Karen is one thing. In her role as Ministry of Finance boss, under the NCC was one of the best men they ever put there was Kennedy Silver. And she would have had to issue finances to the NCC. She would be very well aware of the gentleman who has been in charge of erecting the stage and doing everything since we born. She will know that the bank bunkers in Chagramas. We use them to store stuff after Carnival. And she would be probably the best person for you all to ask, or for us to ask, what has happened to the steel, because somebody has access to that warehouse, bar the ministry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Caller, if you may, we were just going to pause on that particular question. We're going to keep it in mind, though, but we do have a caller line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Darren. You know, I can't underscore the level of diplomatic chess that had to take place for this thing to go through. I totally agree with Karen, congratulating the Prime Minister and the team. But I want to say two things. One to Sean. Sean, you had mentioned stuff with not knowing what Maduro and his regime in terms of negotiation. Let me say this. Don't think that they were not part and parcel of this negotiation, even though it was not mentioned by the Prime Minister yesterday. They are involved in this as well. And to Keaton, boy, you know I love you.
Go on.
But,
go on.
It seems as if, I mean, you give the Prime Minister some flowers, but you didn't give him the roses that everybody else giving. Like, you give him some chrysanthemums. Thank you.
Thank you, caller, for giving us the correct context of the situation.
No roses, just chrysanthemums. Who is against chrysanthemums, by the way?
Yeah, but it's not roses.
Oh,
Peter, Valentine's Day coming up, it's not roses.
Nah, in the climate that way, and I can't afford roses right now. But we have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm calling from Arima.
Yes?
Yes.
Go ahead, you're live.
Yeah, I wish to... Hello? Are you taking my call?
Yes, you're live. You're on the air.
We can hear you.
I wish to greatly commend Karen for her honesty, bravery, integrity, and knowledge. She does not vilify others even when she condemns their action. Great work, Sean and Keaton, and kudos to all of you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much.
God bless you all, and keep up the good work.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Well, there's a lot. I'm so sorry that my chrysanthemums are not as beautiful as roses, but that's okay. Karen, let's go to that caller from Marval first. He was very curious to know if you would have any clue as to the...
I think you would know, he was referencing somebody who worked under you during your time in the ministry.
Kenny De Silva, the access to the steel for the North Stand. You know,
the NCC would fall under the, I know it's part of the state enterprise, but really would be part of the Ministry of Tourism. But it's really an indication now, as much as I have been in great praise of the Prime Minister over this, and I take nothing back. He has my absolute admiration for how he's handled that, he and his team. We haven't talked about other things. So, you know, it's just an indication of the state of the of Trinidad and Tobago. And so I don't think this is the time to go through that. At this point in time. So I can't answer it. It's not part of my...
we do have a call online with us from El Socorro. Good morning, caller. From
San
San
Juan,
my apologies.
Good morning to
caller.
the panel, Keaton, Sean, and Mrs. Teixeira.
Good morning.
Yeah. On the issue of the presidency that Mrs. Teixeira touched on a while ago, you see, if we go back in time and in history, it was when the UNC was in government under the Prime Ministership of Mr. Pandey. I think Mr. Pandey compromised the office of president when he elevated a sitting member of parliament, namely Mr. A.N.R. Robinson, and put him in the position of president. When we look back in time in history, it's difficult to conceive how Mr. Pandey could have done that, to take a sitting member of parliament, who is Mr. Robinson, who had supported him to be prime minister and elevated him to the position of president. So when you look at that, and people say, well, you know, it was a deal that they had made prior to the elections in 1995. But when you're running a government, it's not a Tea Party. You have to be serious. These
I'll just respond to that very quickly. Very quickly. Number one, Ian Robinson was a prime minister. Nobody's going to tell a former prime minister what to do. Number two, he was not beholden to Mr. Pandey. They had a falling out with the Club 88, with the whole NAR thing falling apart. So the question is not whether, the question here is that Christine Gang is coming out of the bowels of the party. There's no question to me that she will be seen as a mentee, as a protege of the party. There's no way that anyone could say that about Anya Robinson, who was prime minister of this country, whose relationship with Mr. Pandey was less than a good one. So I don't think one would question his ability to be independent in his thought, even if he came out of the House, which Section 24 allows. That's the big difference between the two of them.
Caller, you still with us? Or?
All right,
okay,
caller, thank
but
you.
I will say this, caller. I actually do think that your point had merit, except the way how his presidency played out. We didn't really have the precedent that it didn't form. Ironically, he went against the person that more or less stabbed him for the post. And when they had the tie towards the end of his presidency, he picked Mr. Manning over Mr. Pandey.
Because
so
it
was a very unique situation. I get it. It could have happened, right, caller? You're correct in that it could have happened, but it kind of worked out that it did not. From that situation, we did not really have the precedent set where it caused now the floodgates of party appointees to the post of president. We reverted back to more or less the norm. I think Mr. Robinson kind of showed, hey, don't expect this to be all a bed of roses if you want to follow in this fashion. But now this situation is a bit different to that one in multiple ways as well, because technically, as a member of the NAR and now he's appointed by the political leader of the UNC, the dynamics of it is not exactly the same. But your point, though, is valid. It potentially could have started there.
Club 88, I haven't heard that in such a long time. The caucus of love, unity, and brotherhood. It's interesting, ladies and gentlemen, if ever you get the opportunity, some of us might not know our history. Actually, I'll just quickly segue into something at this point. If you don't know your history, then you don't know, where you're going to, where you're coming from. And we celebrate Carnival, for example, but do we know where Carnival came from, or do we know where Carnival stemmed from?
The French,
yes.
actually,
yes. Sorry, yes.
And, the masquerade balls.
I should know this because I was
came into the tamboule and the cambule
and
the whole thing and banning the sticks.
But the reason why I'm tying into this is because WESN very soon is going to be presenting a snippet of a program called The Legacy of Khan Evolve, and quite frankly, look out for it, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be educational and informative. Again, in this great future.
The government does do that too, because they do the at East Dry River area. They reenact
the reenactment of the Kambule riots.
They reenact a lot of it. So but there's more to be done.
Which is taking place at 4 a.m. In a couple weeks' time. I would like to go. Probably have to go there before coming to Talking Point.
Oh yeah,
but I would like to go.
I don't know if I can make that.
The Piccadilly Greens. So anyway, we have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. Morning, Mr. Shearer. Just want to call in this morning quickly to compliment Miss Kangalu because she is a graduate and ex-schoolmate of mine from Grant Memorial Presbyterian School in San Fernando. But in saying that, I concur with Mr. Shearer that the presidency is tainted if you take a political point and put into the presidency. I think the public is generally looking for independence in that position and where it is not tainted. Today in Trinidad, every position in Trinidad is tainted by politics and politicians. So the general public, when a decision is made, either sees it as PNM or UNC. And what we need is neutrality in that position, and we don't see it, right? I went to school in Grand School with two mayor's children. Mr. Mutu's daughter and Miss Kangalu was in my class. And I'm very proud that they could reach and attain the levels that they have reached, But in this position, the country is in a position where we are looking for neutrality. And I don't think, according to Ms. Teixeira, it is not fit for purpose. That's a good terminology. And I agree with that. And I believe that they need to review that, and we need to put things in place in order for the appointment of the president. Also, this RIC situation, we are in a mess in Tiantec. And I want to say this. A former Minister of Energy was on TV last night talking about the gas, the situation, and the Dragon Field. He very well knew the gas was depleting when he was in office, and they did nothing. Nothing, absolutely nothing. No exploration, anything of that nature. And we want to compliment the government for doing what they did with Venezuela, and the U.S. government for stepping in. We needed that. But in this case, as they said, that gas will not be monetized until maybe 2026, 27 going down the road.
Yeah.
So the country shouldn't be on high alert for this, because it's not going to happen right away. But there's a process to follow. So we thank God for that. But Tiantec problem is it have sufficient gas. That's one of the problems. And because of no gas and no foresight and vision, we the customer have to pay now, plus the government owe Tiantec, and they're not paying the bill. So the small man have to pay because there's no vision, there's no foresight, and nobody is thinking ahead. God bless you guys. Take care.
Thank you very much, caller. Does your head hurt when you do that?
No.
Okay, but anyway,
the enthusiasm shields me from anything.
I'm curious, and now don't get upset with me, but I'm just trying to understand it all around. If by chance, and I'm speaking very hypothetically here, like extremely, like the extreme of hypothetics, the current government, a PNM administration, were to appoint a member or a former member of a UNC government, or a current member of a UNC government, or a member of the United National Congress, to the position of president, would we have been against that? Because in a sense, it's still a political appointee. There would be no neutrality in the office. So are we getting confused? I'm just simply asking, are we getting confused for party politics? I'm not talking about you or Karen, I'm not talking about Sean and myself, but I'm talking about generally all around. Are we just getting mixed up in party politics again?
Basically, if you're taking somebody from the other side, the dynamics are not the same as if you're putting somebody in your side. There's still implications though. There's still implications, but it's different.
No, can I just say, to really think, and I think I was so glad to hear that caller say it. He understood what I was saying. Fit for purpose. If you took somebody from the opposition, they're not to come there and to fight the government.
Yeah.
They're there to work with the government. You're going to bring in somebody. That's why Zoltan could never have been nothing. Go in the opposition benches if you want to go on the opposition benches. But you going in with an attitude like you're ready to go and fight the government. That's not your role. What we are saying is fit for purpose. You do not take a active party member of over 20 years. It will always be political in the appointment, in some form of attitude. But to take an active party person and put them as president is not fit for purpose in accordance with our constitution. And that's the point one of your callers understood that I was making. And it would be worse if you took somebody from the opposition, because what they're going to do there, to come there to fight the government, to prevent the government from doing its work. The head of state is the head of executive, but he or she gives up or her powers to the government so they can run the country. But at the same point in time, you expect a certain level of independence, and she's going to be in trouble with that.
It's almost right. Yeah, so it has to be independent, meaning a political appointee from the other side. While it might seem more palpable, it's just a different kind of way that is not going to work. But the irony is,
going to work because they're going to fight the government.
When Karen is talking about the president and all of the different responsibilities and roles and how it functions, all I could think about is this is how the monarch of the UK is supposed to function. Why do we have this? We don't have a monarch. Why is this necessary? This needs to change. This makes no sense to me, because literally it makes sense with how the constitution was set up and the democracy is set up to facilitate or to account for the fact that technically they still have a monarch. So it makes sense for the UK to have this. But we literally just put somebody in that position seemingly arbitrarily, because there's no actual benefit, I think, of copying the system so wholesale. And I understand that technically we copied Canada, but Canada, their head of state is still the monarch of England. This really needs to change because I think this is impractical. This is impractical.
Yeah, so I will just use the words fit for purpose. No, neither side. No, she's not fit for purpose. And taking an opposition person, you're not bringing somebody to come and fight the government. I'm not advocating that. I'm not advocating that at all. But I'm saying when you have to give your speeches and talk about the state of the country on behalf of the body politic, the electorate, are you going to be independent enough to speak about it? They're going to quote you from the answer.
I'll tell you what, Karen, let's just pause for a moment. We have our final caller for the morning from Westmoreland. Right. Good morning, caller.
Morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, I would like to speak about the LNG.
Sure.
Okay. I am thinking that we maybe should start building out more LNG trains because 1 trillion cubic feet of gas is conservatively $6 billion US per each trillion, right? The Dragon field is about 4 trillion cubic feet.
Yes.
That's $24 billion US right there. And then the Laurent Manité, which is a combination of another 12 trillion, multiply that by 6 billion US. This is huge, huge money. And what is probably going to happen is that gradually all these sanctions will be removed and we will end up with a bottleneck in Point Forte because we will not be able to process all this gas. And what is going to happen? Some European company is going to come and put on an LNG plant in eastern Venezuela. And we're going to lose out. So we also need to have foresight moving forward with how we deal with processing all this potential gas. Remember, Venezuela have over 200 trillion cubic feet in reserves there.
Yeah, I think the largest reserves in the world.
That's my point.
I don't underestimate the government, Again, it looks like I'm a spokesperson. I should be on another television station because the truth of the matter is, I think the LNG is big now. Oil, natural gas has dropped. But you see, to have LNG, you have to have the ships, you have to have the know-how, you have to have the platform. Right now, Europe does not want to use the pipeline, and they're trying to shut down their dependency on Russia. So LNG is big in the dance right now. Trinidad has a lot to gain from LNG. But I do think what I understood was the plan was that the Acacia, I don't know if I have the right hub, but the intention was that when the pipeline came from the Dragon field, which is closer than using the gas from Ghana, which I was told was not the better deal, the intention is that's the hub, but it's going down into Point Lisa's industrial estate so that our country is going to, I think the government working with Proman, NAPTHA, with that new company that they formed, Nikwan and all of that, they intend to go down the value chain and add value added down that thing. So I think they have thought out a lot of what you are saying and giving them all of that credit. I really give them that credit, and I believe that is already in the pipeline. And by the way, one of the reasons why the prime government of in America let go of joining hands with Maduro is because Guaido fell out of grace. He couldn't even get a few thousand people to come and he called a meeting. He thinks, so Guaido, you don't notice CNN stop talking about Guaido? Yeah, you don't notice that CNN stop talking about suffering. Right, yeah. But not only that, you don't realize CNN stopped talking long time about the suffering about Venezuela. All of that was politics. And now Colombia is open. Let the Venezuelans go there. The Prime Minister did the right thing. That is what I give him credit.
Let me just add quick, Karen. I believe you're right. When we listen to the Prime Minister, I think the energy conference Monday was very, very important to listen to. One of the things that the Prime Minister emphasized was our ammonia and methanol production. And if we want to remain as significant players or even participants, he said, we have to make a change. However, I also looked to Stuart Young's CNN press conference where he was somewhat criticized for saying we have 4 trains. And I think the point he was trying to make is, yes, they're all 4 are not operating. But Karen, the infrastructure to process natural gas into LNG is there. And that's one of the things that we have to offer to the region to help process this natural gas into LNG so it could be shipped to energy-dependent places around the world. I believe the estimate is 600 million might not have electricity.
Europe.
But right now, there's also major concerns about these lesser developed countries with regards to energy availability right now. That might be the next crisis after food.
I have to bump you off. And I will continue to bump you off because we are over time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to Karen.
See you well, Peter.
Yes,
Thank you very much, Karen, for being here on Talking Point once more. It's good seeing you, by the way, and it's good hearing from you. And thank you to Sean and to all our callers this morning. This has been Talking Point on WSN. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
And to give your loved ones some roses.
WESN.
Hi kids, your boy Tim Tim here, welcoming you to Disneyland, the biggest kids Juve party in the Carnival. Only listen, Sunday, January 29th, all roads lead to the Queen's Park Savannah. I will be there with my brand new partner, Soca Monster. Who is asleep right now? Soca Monster, man, boy. People here, boy. Disneyland, boy.
Partner, Disneyland tickets are out, you know. Watch me. It's kids with paint, water, and soca in the savannah. I get in my rest now, so I can get the earliest early bird. Wait now! It's sleep you gonna and sleep too? Like you trying to get them tickets before me? Disneyland!